Blue Jays first base situation is interesting to me because, yes, Chris Colabello comes up last year in a platoon-type role with Justin Smoak and blows the doors off and takes that job and is the starting first baseman in the playoffs, and deservedly so, and performs well there. I think we know what Justin Smoak is. He's the guy with the track record. He's the guy who was the elite prospect who has never really shown the ability to make contact on a consistent basis. Are baseball people looking at the Blue Jays first baseman situation and saying, well, you know what, that is kind of interesting. That is a point that maybe they didn't think would be a concern, but could very easily be one this year?
I think so, to a certain extent, Ben, because you look at it, and one thing as well, from a long-term standpoint, I'm sure Mark Shapiro, Ross Atkins are thinking about this and trying to figure out where this is headed in the long term. Is Rowdy Tellez from the minor leagues, how close is he to potentially being a factor? Because obviously this is linked to Edwin Encarnacion's free agency. And so all of a sudden, if you look at the situation and say, okay, well, Smoak and Colabello, if we're not sure if this is going to be a platoon for us going forward and that they're going to be our group in 2017, and we also don't know if we're going to have Edwin back, then you really start to ask some questions about, okay, do we think about trying to find maybe a different bat at the trade deadline this year to sort of get out in front of this? Because these are basically three roster spots on your major league club between Colabello, Smoak, and Encarnacion that you're not sure are all going to be there next year. So I think that you can start to maybe be a little creative and look for things. Again, it's a short look, and I'm a big believer in Chris. I think Colabello is going to be able to find his way, and he's certainly had some rough months before with Minnesota, and he bounced back from that. So I'm a believer that he'll probably find a way to have a productive season, especially because he's still on the less expensive end of the of sort of the salary scale, where I think you probably want to bring him back for another year because it's not a very expensive proposition. But to a larger point, guys, I'll say this: the Jays' strikeout rate is a little alarming to me, and I looked at this yesterday. I think 3 of the top 10 players in the major leagues in terms of strikeouts are on the Jays: Martin, Tulowitzki, and Donaldson. Now, Donaldson's numbers are still pretty much the same aside from the strikeouts, but I would be a little concerned about Martin and Tulowitzki at this point in time. I think that Tulo's got to get to the point where, you know, he had the adjustment period last year. Now is his first full season with Toronto. He's obviously still got plenty of time left in his contract. You'd like to see him really settle in here and I think have some more production. Again, he's a guy with a track record. I'm not too concerned about it. But you look at the strikeouts, guys, and that is what I'm worried about, because when you talk about a team that has legitimate expectations and hopes of winning the World Series, you look at the teams that have success in October, and they're the teams that put the ball in play. And I'd be worried again about what happened towards the end of the series against the Royals last year. When you run up against a good pitching staff, you just can't manufacture the runs in the big moments. And that is something that's more of a fundamental thing about this lineup, guys, that I do think Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins have to address as the year goes along. How do we find ways to build a team that's going to put the ball in play and win postseason games? Because that's what you're trying to do here. It's not just about getting to the playoffs. You got to win the World Series now in Toronto. And I think they have to find some different elements to the lineup to help them get there. And that's one thing I want to see them try to address as the season goes along.